Oh, it's raining. Ooh. Hello, my name's Robert, and this is a portfolio video because everyone does one of these videos. I see them all the time. They're always posted. And this is how I got into the University of Alberta and then Calgary University. I think it's Alberta University of the Arts. Maybe. I actually tried to record this video yesterday, but it was about 12:45 a.m. and I was so tired that I was talking out of my ass. And honestly, looking back at the video, it was an hour and 10 minutes of just me talking. It's pretty incoherent, so I'm deciding to re-record it today because why not? I don't know. But yeah, I didn't know me being tired was so... So this video is gonna happen in 3 parts. So one of them is gonna be kind of like advice I got, and then how I used it, and then is it really gonna be 3 parts? I guess we'll see. One of them is gonna be my works and how I decided to place them in my portfolio and how I decided to take pictures of them and how they look in the pictures I took, because photography is a very important part of your portfolio. I guess I could also talk about my experience with going to a portfolio day and having them look critically at your work and explain how you could improve and how things can be different and whatnot. So I guess that is 3 parts. Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna put this one specific part, probably, it'll have there's gonna be an image. It's like this whole, I guess, pyramid. Kind of like how a food pyramid is, but like, I don't know, differently. That was the stupidest thing I've ever said. Lock in. Okay, so in this like triangle of importance, and it'll be more in depth on screen, but the general gist of it is at the top of the pyramid is the most important stuff, the stuff that at least the 2 art schools I decided that I was applying to would want more of. And then there will be 3 columns to it. So at the top of this pyramid is observational work. It's really important to show that you can look at something and draw it, or look at something and paint it. It's also really good, and I'd put in this particular area too, is doing stuff that's personal to you. Something that has a pretty deep meaning to you, but that you've curated yourself. So, and I'll show you with one of my pieces later, like even taking a photograph of something very deliberately, planning it out, having everything super prepared for yourself, and then making it. In the column below would be like photographs that you've taken that don't really have meaning, but you can draw them, you can paint them, you can show that. Same thing with like finding something on Pinterest, I would say would also be in this column, because it's like you're finding it, you're doing it. At that point, it's almost just a study of something. There isn't like a concept behind your piece. It's kind of just, you made it. And that could be like a portrait of someone that you found on Pinterest, or that could be a light study, something like that. And then, so in this 3rd column would be fan art and copying like other artists that aren't like the artists in the textbooks. So I guess actually in the row above would also be trying to do a master copy of like a Rembrandt work. But yeah, so in this 3rd column would be like if you, I don't know, drew a portrait of Lin-Manuel Miranda and it looked okay, but he's recognizable and there isn't really in-depth meaning behind it. They're likely they've seen the picture that you're doing the piece in reference to, and it's nothing too impressive. Because again, if it's not exceptional, then it's just okay by their standard. And then if you try to do like a copy of a cartoon style, like if you watch anime and you're like, I want to draw exactly like this, so you draw that. That's not looked at as exceptional either, or like good, because again, it's not your art. Firstly, you're copying their art, and it's also not as, it's not hard to do, because you could easily have traced it, and it's just not a difficult task. When an art school is looking for you as an individual, they're looking for someone that isn't a hobbyist, someone who will stay through the 4 years of the program, because firstly, universities are looking for the money. They're taking you, yes, because of your interest and because you want to learn, your willingness to learn, but they're also expensive. Let's be so real. And they're looking for someone who will stay those 4 years, who will develop their skill, who might even stay for a master's, who might try to go further with art because it'll benefit them. So looking for someone who isn't a hobbyist is probably the smartest idea, because if someone's so interested in it, if it's their passion, they will stick around. Okay, so when I went for my portfolio review day, I was allowed to bring everything I wanted to show, because the intention of that day is that they can look at all of your work and then point out the ones that are the best to put in. And so I already had my portfolio done. Like, I wasn't changing anything, but I knew that you could get early admission. So, and this was for the University of Alberta, not for the Alberta University of the Arts, which I had already gotten into. So I went in, I literally brought everything. I'll honestly put every single piece I put up, like I brought sketchbooks, it was so hard to bring in. There was so much. But it was to increase those chances of getting in. And so I got in on the spot, which was lovely. And I'm very grateful for that. But it was scary. Like, I had 2 professors in there with me, and it's a lot of pressure. So I think one thing to, and if you have this opportunity, because not everyone does, like, especially if you're in the United States, like, some people are applying to, like, RISD, or, that's the only one I know, because that's the only one I'm interested in. If you apply to RISD and you're all the way in Los Angeles, like, obviously you're probably not going in for a portfolio day, you're probably just submitting it. But if you get the opportunity, I think it's important to ask questions and be like, hey, how can I improve this? Because I was really nervous. So I was like, what? So I can't actually remember a lot of the experience, being quite honest with you, but I think that it's important to ask questions, and it's important to ask about the order, and important to see how they want you to take pictures, and try to be like, hey, why not this piece? Like, and ask why, because maybe they won't give you an in-depth explanation, maybe they'll be in a rush, but if you can get that opinion, especially if you unfortunately don't get into your program, it's really good to know how you could improve what you got. Because when I went in, it felt almost like an interview. It was very quick. I was in there for 2 minutes tops, and they were like, oh, okay, you can go now. And I didn't know I got in until I talked to another lady, but that's besides the point. And it was fast, and I didn't ask as many questions as I should have. But maybe I didn't need to ask questions because my portfolio would have gotten me in anyways. But that's besides the point. So bring everything you can, and if you can't bring a piece, try to take a photograph of it, and a very good photograph of it, in different, or like in good lighting, and maybe even the texture on it, and just try to make sure that they can see how much you experiment with your work. I actually have notes. They really liked my observational stuff that I'll show you later. But even more so, they liked my work that had some conceptual ideas to it. Because they looked at my conceptual stuff and they actually said that they would like to see more concept from me, because they could see, because there were so many examples of observational still lives and just all of that, the whole shebang there, but they wanted to see how I could idea generate and what ideas were to me and how I understood myself as an artist. And I've since then I've actually taken that advice and I've tried my best to continue advancing my ideas and trying to be more deliberate with my thoughts, and I think I'm actually going down a cool trajectory. Like, I really enjoy my work now. I'll actually probably do a video on it soon, because I think the work itself is pretty decent, and I don't know, it's kind of, once you find your stride with the direction you want to go in, even though it's kind of scary and kind of hard to do at first, you kind of get there, and there's just so much opportunity after that. Besides the point, they still asked for more diversity from me. They thought that they wanted to see more, because I only had one sculpture and then the rest was all traditional media. So maybe even I wouldn't do digital work or photography for the University of Alberta, but for ACAD, I think it's more encouraged because they have a lot more opportunity for people who work digitally. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily suggest going digital for the University of Alberta, just kind of from what I've seen and what people who go there have produced. Also, another side note, this is going to sound creepy, but for the university you're going to, search up portfolio videos. Obviously I'm making this now because I saw one portfolio video for the art school I'm going to. But research that, because then you'll see what they're looking for, especially with the people who got in. Yeah, but I even like searched up like an Instagram account that they have, and I'm like, okay, so let's see all the artists who are in this program right now. And looking through their work, not a lot of digital media for the University of Alberta, a lot of traditional painters, there was sculptors, there's just so much range, but it wasn't like, there wasn't really photography, there wasn't really digital art, and if it was digital art, it was videography. I think that's what it's called, where people would record videos. But usually, because I went to an exhibition actually, and if you get the opportunity, like, go see their grad shows. I saw this one person, they had a sculpture of this robotic figure in cardboard, and it was also crocheted on, and there was like sensory stuff, like there was a video, you could put headphones on and listen to water noises, and there was so much depth to it. And no, I wouldn't say it was very traditional, but it was awesome. It was really, really cool. So like, there is so much you can explore, but I think to start, it's good to just show that you can do the basics, and that you can do the basics decently enough that they'll want to take you into the program. They also wanted me to try more from They wanted me to try more from my imagination. Because I work a lot from reference photos, I work a lot from things in front of me, and they wanted me to just draw or something and do it from my head. Which honestly I never thought of doing, because I've never done that. But it's really good to know, because once you kind of have those fundamentals down, you can manipulate light and shadows and forms and perspective. And they wanted more of that from me because they wanted to know that I could do that. Another really important thing that I think this is pretty obvious, but have so many different things in your portfolio. It's like a highlight reel. Show the things that are good, are great, and some things that you learn from, some things that helped you develop. Because sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, some of the pieces I have in my portfolio are pretty shitty, but it's good to put them in because it's a highlight. It highlights that, oh, well, I tried this, but maybe I didn't like it too much, so I drifted away from it. For me, what I really wanted to show to them was that I did portraiture and I really like to do still lives because that's me. But let's say you're a landscape girly, then put a bunch of landscapes in. Like, do that because it shows who you are. Because they want to see that voice. They want to see what you're interested in. I would say for sure, and I haven't heard this advice really from anyone, but I think it's kind of obvious, try to have a few pieces of realism. Even if it's not necessarily what you enjoy doing, I think it's good to have an observational still life that is realism. You try to make it as realistic as possible, touching kind of all of the art fundamentals like values, perspective, understanding proper proportions, stuff like that, because they want to see that you know how to make art. And sometimes it is hard, especially when you have something that you enjoy doing, to try to stray from that. But if you want to go to art school, expect to stray from basically everything you're doing. I'm not in art school yet, but that's what I've heard from everyone who's gone to art school. Now for the part that everyone's been waiting for, the art I put into my portfolio. So there's details you get to pick. So you have the photograph, you have the title, the year it was made, the size, the medium, and a description. So let's say you decide to go to University of Alberta for fine arts, or really any portfolio I'd say this is smart to do with. Try to utilize everything they gave you the opportunity to use. Even though it's optional to have description, write a description. You're allowed to over-explain your work in a portfolio. They're not looking for ambiguity. Yes, you can show ambiguity, but try to explain it a bit because they're trying to see how you understand your work. It's not an exhibition opportunity. It's you getting into art school. Anyways, so for a portfolio, it is very, very, very important to have order in it. So my order was I started off strong. I went into my mediocre stuff, my studies, the stuff I kind of just experimented with, and then I ended off on a strong note. And I think that's important because they'll look through everything, and if you start and end on a strong note, they'll think it's overall good. And with experimentation in between, they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Oh, this looks good. And so almost curating your own little exhibition for your portfolio is very, very important. So anyways, the title of my first piece is called Who Knows? It was made in the year 2022. It is 13 by 17.5 inches, and it is in Conte. Yes, so with this piece, it started off with a bang because in my description, I just wrote down, it's a picture of my sister, and I enjoyed her ambiguity in the photograph I took of her, and I wanted to depict that through my art. Okay, so that was my starter piece because it kind of starts off with a bang, but I wouldn't say it's my strongest piece in the portfolio. So my next piece is titled I Know, and it was made in the year 2023, and it is 20 inches by 26 inches. And it was made in oil paint. So basically this piece was kind of my first kind of touch with adding concepts to my work. But again, the concept, just like with the first one, my concept here wasn't really intentional. It kind of just came after a bit. Like like my sister's portrait, I just drew because I wanted to draw it. This one, I just wanted to paint a portrait, so I painted a portrait of myself. But then I added onto it as I was making it, which is good, but there was no intention. I added intention to it later. This would probably be in the top column of the pyramid, and it shows that I take my own reference photos. I decided on my concept, and I also experimented with this piece. Even though I don't like it now, at the time I was like, oh girl, I ate. I did not. Not at all. But yeah, it was just a touch of that experimentation. It's something new. So this piece, probably the best piece in my portfolio that I showed. So this one was a very mixed media piece. It's called No Longer Human. It's in reference to Osamu Dazai's book. And it was made in the year 2023, almost 2024. And it is 30 inches by 40 inches. So it's decently sized. And so I transferred these book pages onto the back of a canvas. And then I painted a full body self-portrait on top. So this really touches a bunch of different things. Like this one was very intentional with this idea. I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I experimented with transparency and opacity. And again, this was more of a glazing kind of piece with the oil paint. It was just important for experimentation because this piece itself has actually kind of slowly paved the way for my current work that unfortunately didn't make it into my portfolio. I think I would have preferred if I had those pieces in my portfolio. And I'll just flash them on the screen. You can kind of see the, I guess, interconnectedness, like the transparency within these portraits also comes through in this portrait. This piece itself, when I had actually gone into the portfolio review day, they liked the piece because it experimented, and it was looser painting. The piece itself was a step in a new direction. It wasn't hyperrealism. It was definitely still realism. I'd actually classify it more surrealism. It was just different, really different from my other work, because all of my other work is hyperrealism or borderline hyperrealism. So it's like a taste of what I could do, and I really enjoy that. They told me to make sure to have this one in my portfolio. This piece, it's called Does He? So the titles don't really make a lot of sense, but the two portraits in the beginning and this one, they're all connected. It's who knows, does he, and then it's I know. It's kind of like that cohesive body of work. So this is Does He, made in 2023, 14.5 inches by 19.5, and it is made in Conte. It is a portrait of my brother. This one, personally, I would put this one in the first or the second column. Because again, we've already seen it. They looked at it. They actually, during portfolio day, they said that they preferred this one to my sister's. It's the same thing. It's just a portrait of my sibling. Nothing that different to it. The only difference is that he has a better expression on his face. It's not expressionless. And this is kind of where I start going into my more observational stuff. The first 4 pieces was just to show, hey, I love portraiture. And so this piece I just called it Bottle Still Life. It was made in 2024, 8 inches by 10 inches, and it was made with oil paint. So in contrast to my glazing kind of oil painting, this is alla prima. So I actually did this entire painting in one sitting. It took me about 4 or 5 hours. I can't really remember, but I did it. And so what was really important about the still life and the next 2 still lives I'll show is I picked the subject, I set the lighting, I set the fabric in the background, and I decided where I was standing, and it's all super intentional because I set it up all myself. and then I painted it. The next two are very similar. This one's a jug, also 8x10, made in 2024. And this one is personally my favorite one, but again, same as the other one. And same with this kettle. These are for sure in the second column, or maybe even the third column of this like pyramid I'm kind of visually showing. Because I found them on Pinterest. They were just light studies. The one on the right actually is a reference photo from the paint coach. He had this one video where he was like talking about learning how to paint planes and whatnot, and so I just painted that. But yeah, it just shows that I've tried to use different materials, and just like the bottle, like I was trying to, well, actually these pieces are quite in reference to my still lives, because like with the kettle, just like the block fruits, there's planes, like the bottle, like with the lollipop and the bottle beside each other. Very much so, like I'm trying to show that I can work with transparency, and I know how to shift my brain to understand how to paint things that aren't just solid. But this was just me showing that I knew how to paint different things. I kind of squished these landscapes in the middle as well because they're not my best works. I put them in because I wanted to show my diversity, my experimentation. These are both in oil paint, and they were both made in 2023. So the landscape I did that is horizontally, or the landscape that I painted landscape, that one was done plein air. So I painted that one outside. And the other one that I painted in a portrait kind of framing, I took a photograph of. And it was just kind of showing, hey, I've tried this. The plein air one, I would say significantly looks better, but they're so-so. And that's why I kind of squished them in the middle, because no one's really gonna want to see that anyways. But they just see it and they're like, okay, cool. This piece is called Hungry, and it was made in 2023, 16 by 20 inches, and another oil painting. And so this one was also kind of a good one for me because it was very intentional. I decided to set up this entire still life. I'll actually put a bunch of photos of the different kind of setups I had before I found this photograph that I liked the most. Because this composition, I just kind of worked with the rule of thirds. I thought that would be good enough, and I enjoy the piece. There's a lot I could change about the piece now, but I think it was a good step in the right direction, and I'd put this one in the first or second column because it's pretty decent. And this was also one of my first pieces, my first piece before No Longer Human, that I had intentionally decided the meaning behind it. And I found a lot more fun having a story behind a piece before actually making it. Because sometimes you'll be working on something and you're just kind of doing it and it's like, oh, okay, well this is getting boring. But this one I felt I had a good time creating the entire time because there was a story, there was a meaning, it held a lot of value to me. So this is my one and only sculpture. It is called Money Hungry. It was made in 2022. It is 3.6 by 5.6 by 5. And it is oil-based clay. So it's not a great piece. Let's just say that. Probably the worst piece in my portfolio, or one of. I kind of just put this in my portfolio because I needed a sculpture. Because it's good to show your diversity. And I also think it's important to note that with a portfolio, there's some things that you're going to be so unsure about. Like, there's some pieces that you put in that you're like, eh. But it's also like the critical lens an artist has. These pieces, the bird studies, they're all 13 by 19.5 inches, and they're made in Conte. I just wanted to show that, oh, I can also draw animals. And that I've tried abstract realism. This piece, another kind of conceptual piece I had in reference to the creation of David, I think it's called. This is one of my 2 plaster still lifes that I did in charcoal. I picked these ones to end off my portfolio because I thought it kind of ended off with a bang. And this specific still life I did in a more additive process. I added the charcoal, and that's how I found the proportions. While the next one you see is going to be a reductive process where I toned the paper, then I erased. This last plaster still life I think was important to show after the one prior because it's strong. It has, I would say it has pretty good qualities for a still life, and I like how it looks even now. There's a lot I've changed with it, of course, but I think it's a good step in the right direction. And showing how much I have progressed, and because this was so recent to the portfolio day that I was just like, I think this is a good idea to show, because they'll be like, oh, you can sit for a while, do something in charcoal, and I would say it turned out successful. So all in all, that is my portfolio for university, and that is what got me into 2 different art schools. So that's it for my portfolio video today. If you could like, comment, share, and subscribe. Oh, I've always wanted to say that. I've always wanted to say that. I'd love to have a conversation in the comments, and really nice chatting with you. Bye-bye.